African Climate Foundation will host a webinar focusing on South Africa's 2022 budget in the context of the climate crisis. The intention of this discussion is to connect South Africa's policy makers, activists and academics who are grappling with the question of what development means amid the climate emergency. Well, joining me now to discuss this further is Executive Director of the African Climate Foundation, Saliem Fakir. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Fakir. Thank you for your time and for joining us. Now, you will be hosting a webinar to highlight South Africa's budget in the context of the climate crisis, which I suppose you will agree with me that it speaks to the need and the urgency of that with dealing with climate emergency.
Yes, and just to inform listeners that this is a very important event. We're bringing some really good speakers together, particularly Fadil Kabob, who's sort of looked at issues such as the Green Deal, monetary policy, and we have our own Michael Sachs, who has worked for National Treasury and has actually worked in the budget section of the government. And we have other interesting speakers as well, and I would invite the audience to look at this. Why is this important? In that the last year we've seen the really upsurge in South Africa around the importance of climate issues. The South African government secured a 8.5 billion deal in Glasgow in 2021 at the COP26, or the Conference of Parties. And it's a major achievement not only for South Africa, but as a major interesting example globally. And we are in the throes of actually negotiating this deal, which will enhance the South Africa's ability to actually embark on not only an energy transition, but hopefully also a just transition. And the second part is that last year, President Ramaphosa set up the Presidential Climate Commission, another important milestone in South Africa, which is vital for coordinating climate policy and involving a wide variety of members of society and other key stakeholders in discussing the climate crisis and also issues like just transition and jobs in the economy, where it's really needed at the moment.
And perhaps zooming in on South Africa, especially when it comes to those responsible for policy-making decisions, do you feel that we've got enough understanding of just how dire the situation is?
We have certainly in the last year seen a major government effort around this. In fact, I would say there's a whole government approach which is really positive and encouraging, and I would say that we have to give credit to President Cyril Ramaphosa for actually flying very high the flag of climate issues. In fact, he was also the chair of the Heads of State Committee on Climate Change when he was holding the AU presidency. So you can see how at the level of even the president and the rest of the cabinet, these issues are taken quite seriously. And obviously what we need to really ensure is that the climate crisis, on one hand, the issues around dealing with vulnerability to extreme weather, but also the opportunity to increase investments in the energy sector go hand in hand, because they are about transforming the economy and making the economy more resilient in the future.
Now, looking at the role of government and what it necessarily brings to the table, it seems that it might be somewhat of a difficult and tough balancing act of ensuring that development, investments, economic growth happens, all whilst ensuring that the climate is protected, and it's done so sustainably.
I think what we are trying to articulate, which has never been before, is really not to have a view about climate issues simply as environmental issues. There are important milestones that have been achieved as an environmental issue, but increasingly globally climate issues are becoming also mainstream economic issues. And I think as African Climate Foundation, we are really trying to show the connection between climate and development. They're intertwined, and that in dealing with climate issues, you are also dealing with the developmental aspects of society, not only in South Africa, as we operate across the continent, are vital for economic development across the continent. The issue here is not so much just about dealing with a crisis, but ensuring that as we create enhanced investments and economic spin-offs from climate investments, that we are ensuring that there are more jobs in the economy and that there is a proper distribution of wealth and income to those who need to benefit from it. Otherwise, climate issues become a concern only for rich people.
Well, Mr. Fakir, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you so much for your time and for joining us on our program. That was, of course, the Executive Director of the African Climate Foundation, Mr. Saliem Fakir, speaking to us on what actually development means amid the climate emergency that is facing the rest of the country.